All right, so now I'm done sewing my puff sleeve. So you can see I gathered both the basic sleeve, and I also gathered the puff sleeve. Okay, because of the additional inches we added to the basic sleeve itself, it makes it puff up on the vertical direction. So this is what the puff sleeve looks like. You can see it puffing up. Okay, actually looking beautiful right here. So that is it, and I've also done that for the second sleeve. So the two of them has been sewn. So I want to also mention to you that on the side I have to stitch both the basic sleeve and the puff sleeve together, so there will be an excess. So once you get to the excess, just tuck it in, push it in neatly at the hem, following the direction of the puff, as you can see what I did right here. So it's high time for us to start sewing the cuff. So I've already cut my cuff, and this is it. So the cuff, I have my cuff at I'm sewing the cuff at the height of 7.5. Okay, so when I open it up, I'll be having 14 or 15 inches. So it's on fold, as you can see. My cuff is on fold. Okay, so I'll just pick up one to demonstrate to you. So I'll be using this to demonstrate to you. And here you can see I've already marked my center line. So I'm going to take the measurement of what I have right here. I'm taking the measurement of what I have on the hem of the sleeve. So on the hem of the sleeve right here, I have 15.5. So what I did was I just cut 17. Okay, so you can easily trim off. Can you see? I cut 17, but I have 15.5. So the center line, I'm going to match it up with my center line. You can see I have my notches. So I'm going to pick only one of this cuff right now, and I'm going to face it on the inner or the basic sleeve parts. You can see how I placed it. So I'll go on my machine now. I'm going to sew from one end to the other. Can you see that? I'll pin it up, and I'm going to sew from one end to the other. So once I sew from one end to the other, I'll come back with this. Okay, let us go and sew it so you see how that is being done. All right, so it's time for us to start sewing the cuff. So you need to get your center line, very important. And to do that, you are going to merge two of it like this. You are going to merge them together like this and put it together to find my midpoint. So I've already made the notch on the midpoint. So what I'm going to do now is to come up with the hem. This is the hem of my sleeve. So I'm going to pick up one of my sleeves, open it up, as you can see, bring in the hem of the puff sleeve, secure with my pin. I'm securing with my pin notch to notch. Okay, so by the time I hold it down notch to notch, I'm going to stretch to see. You can see the excess I added. Remember, we had 15 inches, but I added 17. Okay, so I'll just arrange it a little bit so it will be at the center line. Okay, so I have it at the center line, and now I want to sew. So I'll drop my pressed foot now. I'll back stitch. I'll be sewing right on top. Okay, so I'm sewing on the stitches of my gathers directly. Make sure you sew on the stitches of your gathers. Can you see how I placed it? Okay, so don't step, just sew on the stitches of your gathers. So this is it, and here you can see where I tucked in. So I'll just back stitch at that point. Now after I'm done doing this, the next I'm going to do I'll pick up these other parts, as you can see, making sure it matches up to the notch. You can see the notch, so it has to match up on the notch. I'll fold in 0.5. You can go to your ironing table and iron it, so it will be easy for you, the 0.5. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll just fold it in, okay, because I can control it. So I'm going to hold it with my pin, so you can see the direction I'm holding it in a way I can sew on top of my pins. Okay, so when you are doing that, please make sure you check the back of it to be sure there is nothing folding right there. So it is better you go over to your ironing table and iron that part before you do this, so it does not give you issues when you be sewing on it. So this is it, and I'm going to start my sewing right now. So as I'm sewing, I'll be checking the back. So I'll back stitch now. So as I'm sewing, I'm also dragging the what I have at the back to be sure it's not folding. I'm making sure I have this at 0.5. So like I said, I can control it. That's why I did not bother to iron. But if you know you cannot control, please, I encourage you to iron the 0.5 inch before you sew. So this is it. You can see it's laying flat and nice. So I'll take up my pin so it stretches out for me. I'll check below as well. So you can see me sewing, top stitching. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm top stitching right on top of this sleeve. So that is it, and I'll back stitch. So at this point you can see what I have right here. Okay, so the cuff, I would now go over to the ironing table and iron it nicely. Okay, so that is it. I'll iron it nicely and I'll repeat the same process for the other sleeve. Then I'll be back to show you how to fit the sleeve. So I'm done sewing the sleeve cuff, and I've given it a good press. So I'll be using, I did for both, so I'll be using one to show you how to fit the sleeve. So this is how the puff sleeve looks like. So I'm just going to merge them together. Okay, so I'm merging them together. Remember, we have an excess at this point, so what I'm merging is the puff sleeve itself. So I'll just secure with my pin at where the puff started, making sure it matches up accordingly at that point. So, and then I match up the puff here as well. Okay, so it has to be equal at the beginning and it has to be equal at the attachment. So I'll push in what I have on the sleeve like this. So my point of interest is on this line and on this line, because here I took one half an inch already. Okay, so my seam allowance here is half. So I'll just sew at half an inch, and then whatever marking I have here, that is how I'm going to sew. So now I'm going to take the measurement of what I have on the hem. On the hem, I measured what I have right here at my 3/4. So at my 3/4 here, I have 11 inches. Okay, so it depends on where you actually want it. So this is where I want it. So I have 11 inches or 10.5. So let me do 10.5. So I'm going to divide 10.5 by 2. 10.5 by 2, or let me do 11. 11 divided by 2, so it's not too tight at that point. I have 5.5. So here I'll measure my 5.5 and I'll make a mark. So I'm going to trim off what I have right here. By the time I finish shaping it, I'll trim off the excess. So I'll come over here at the elbow line. I'm working with elbow 13.5. Divide by 2 will give me 6.75. So this is 6.75. So I'll make my mark at 6.75. So I'm going to connect this like this. Can you see how I'm doing that? I'm using my straight ruler. I'll connect in a straight form. So I'll quickly go to my machine now. I'll start sewing. So I'll sew that and come back so you can see everything matches up together. So as I'm sewing, I'm tucking in my puff sleeve, and I'm going to sew at 0.5 following this line, and later I'll trim it off. So let me quickly do that. I'll do that for both of them. Then I'll be back to show you to sew the armhole into the dress.